Welcome to Handmade Happenings. I'm Melissa. In my last video, I talked about what features to look for when buying your first sewing machine. Today, I'm talking about what to do once you have that machine, how to set it up, and get started sewing. Okay, let's start by looking at what's typically in the box when you get a sewing machine. Obviously, you have the machine itself. You'll also have the foot pedal, which is attached to the cord, which also includes the wall cord, and a pouch with whatever accessories came with the machine. Most will at least have 3 or 4 bobbins, and then some will have extra presser feet and extra needles, and this one came with all of those. In addition to that, you should have your manual as well. A lot of them do come with a quick start guide, which is pretty much meant to get you started sewing. To be honest, I don't know that I've ever had a sewing machine manual that I've read from front to back, but it is good to keep on hand for troubleshooting and questions and stuff like that. Now, if you buy a sewing machine used and you don't have the manual, then you can check the model number and look it up. A lot of times you can find one digitally online. So to find that out, you can first check and see if it's on the front. This one does have the model number on the front of the machine, as well as the brand name. But if it's not there, most machines do have on the back like a plate or sticker or something that has the brand, the model number, and even the serial number and all of that. Then when you need to look it up, you just type in, in this case, Brother LX3817A manual. And you should be able to find one as a digital copy online. So start setting up your machine. The first thing you need to do is decide where you're going to put it. You want a fairly sturdy flat surface. I've always used a desk mainly, though I have used the dining room table on occasions when I had a really big project going on. Next, you can go ahead and connect your foot pedal, and the port for that is usually on the right hand side of the machine, around the same spot as the switch for turning the machine on. And this cord then splits into 2 pieces. One is the foot pedal, which just goes on the floor, and the other is just the end that you plug into the wall. Once the machine is situated, you want to find where the thread goes. Now, this machine just has a spindle that pulls up from the top, and the spool thread just sits on it like this. This is obviously going to vary from machine to machine. Some of them have ones that sit on the top, and some even have ones that kind of sit at an angle and it folds out from the back. So now you need to wind the bobbin, and I'm going to demonstrate how it works on this machine. As far as I know, most are similar to this, but if you see something that looks a little odd compared to what I'm showing you here, then you may just need to check your manual for that. Thread the bobbin. You're going to take the thread from your spool and come over here to this piece and loop it through there. And then it's going to wrap around this spool, and it's going from going in front and around to the back. Then you bring it this way. Your bobbin has like a little hole in it, and you're going to stick the thread through it. So it's this hole on the side. It's not like the big hole here. It's just this little hole on the top of the bobbin. You're going to pull up a piece of it, and then you're going to set your bobbin on this piece right here. So now you're going to turn your machine on. That's the switch on the side. And you need to push this piece over towards this piece. So just to the right. And then you need to hold this excess piece of the thread, and then you're going to put your foot on the foot pedal and it will start to spin. Once it's partway filled where the thread won't come out, you can just clip this so that you don't have to keep holding on to it, and then put your foot back on the pedal and let it go until it stops on its own or until it looks pretty full. So you can see, hopefully, that it did stop. So you push it back over, take it off, and clip the threads. So this is what a properly wound bobbin looks like. It should be smooth and even all the way up and down. If a bobbin is wound improperly, it will have sometimes loops kind of made because the thread didn't wrap around it properly. Sometimes it'll look a little uneven, and it will just not look very neat. And when it's like that, your machine will not sew properly. In fact, most of the time when I'm having a problem with my machine, I check 3 things first. Did I thread it properly? Is the bobbin wound correctly? And is it inserted right? And most of the time, one of those three things is what has caused my machine to be running funny, and that's why these steps are so important. Now to thread the machine, you're going to go ahead, we just wound the bobbin and unhook it from this piece here. And it does need to stay through this first hook, so you can go ahead and put it through that hook if you haven't already. It comes down through this right hand slot. On my machine, it's numbered with the number 2. Down and under this knob here, this is the tension disc. And then it goes back up. And in here, there's this metal hook. I'll try and maybe insert a picture that shows it better. You take your thread and you loop it so that it hooks in there. There's a hole, but then it's got an opening in the back so that it should just slide right in. Now it comes back down, and here at the needle, there's this hook where you just slide the thread behind it. And then you take the end and you insert it into the needle going from the front to the back. Once you get it in, you grab the end and pull it out. And anytime you're sewing, whether it's threading the needle or when you take something off, you want to leave a fairly good length of thread coming out of the needle. Otherwise, if it's too short, the needle will just unthread itself. This machine actually has an automatic, well, not really automatic, but it has a thread cutter here on the side. So as a good rule of thumb, if you pull it off long enough to cut it with the thread cutter, that is long enough for it to not come off. So now to load the bobbin. Now this is only for top loading bobbins or drop-in bobbins. If you have one that has to go in from the front, you're going to need to find a different video because I don't have one of those machines, so I can't really show you. So to do this, you go ahead and take the cover off or slide it out of the way. Some of them don't come off all the way. Now you're going to take your bobbin, and this is kind of hard to explain, I guess, because I just do it. But if you're looking at the bobbin like this, the thread needs to be coming around the top and then off this left-hand side. If it's turned this way, then it's going in the wrong direction for putting it in. So you want it like this, and then you want to just put it like this, down and into the holder. Now on here, there is a metal kind of lip or tooth that you want to catch your thread in. Again, I'll try and get a picture so that you can see a little better what that looks like. For this one, it actually has a little groove that you can go ahead and pull it through. It will cut it so that it's just the right length. Then to bring the thread from the bottom to the top, you hold your thread coming off of your needle, your top thread, and you're just going to crank the wheel on your machine once, and that will just bring the bobbin thread from the bottom up to the top. Then you can put the cover back on. So we have the machine threaded, and now I want to stop real quick and talk about the dials on the machine. And one of these I should have really done earlier, but the rest of them really made more sense to wait till now, so that's why we're doing it here. So the first one is the one that I should have talked about sooner, which is the hand wheel. That is this here, and you turn it, and when you turn it, it just raises and lowers the needle. That's what we used to bring the bobbin thread up from the bottom. So this is pretty easy to understand. You turn it, the needle goes up and down. It's mainly for bringing up the bottom thread, but sometimes I will do it if I need more control over my stitches, if I'm going over like a really tricky area. Coming around to the front of the machine, we have this disc here. This is, I mentioned earlier, the tension disc. Really, I just leave it the way it is. I don't like to mess with it. I have found sometimes they suggest you adjust your tension according to, like, if you're having issues and all. I have found most of the time the problem that I am having is not my tension, so I just leave it where it is. Down here under the machine is this white lever here, and it just raises and lowers the presser foot. And then over here we have the dial that helps to select stitches. So this just has pictures of what the stitch is, and you select the one that you want. Now on this machine, that's all you have to select stitches, because it basically has set lengths and widths for the stitches. Other machines you will have more, and I'll talk about that in a minute. And the last thing on here is the lever for the back stitch. And so what this does is you push this down, and then you put your foot on the foot pedal, and instead of going forward, it will go backwards with the stitches. And you just do that at the beginning and end of seams to lock your stitches in place. Real quick, I just want to show you what a machine with the different dials would have. So with this one, you select your stitch based on this. Ignore the ones in red, those are different stitches. So like A is my straight stitch. And then up here is where I would set the length for my straight stitch. So the larger the number, the wider the stitch. The smaller the number, the shorter the stitch. For most sewing, I like to leave it somewhere in the middle. If I'm doing gathering, I move it to the 4 because that's the longer one and you need longer threads for gathering. And if I'm doing buttonholes or something like that, I move it down to this one here that represents a buttonhole. Otherwise, it usually stays about there. Now, if I am selecting a zigzag stitch, which is B, then I would still select my length. I still leave it about there. I need to come up here to this dial, which if you could see, the top has like a marking on it that represents that this is the width. At 0, the zigzag stitch would still just be a straight stitch. As I go further up in numbers, the wider it gets. And this is one you just kind of have to play with to determine how wide you want it. Now some machines, not all, will also have one that determines the position of your needle. So you can put it to the left, in the middle, or to the right. I leave it usually in the middle because that is what seam allowance guide on my machine plate is set for. Now that you have a general idea of your machine and how to set the stitches, you can go ahead and start sewing. I would encourage you to start with just a basic straight stitch in kind of a medium length and just some scrap fabric, and practice getting the hang of keeping your fabric at your desired seam allowance. You can start by just lining that raw edge of the fabric up with the edge of your presser foot, and then slowly start using the seam allowance guides that are here on the machine. Just for demonstration, you want to put it under there, lower the presser foot, and then you will put your foot on the foot pedal. And remember, that is also how you control your speed. So a few stitches forward, then come over here and press down your reverse stitch and go back, and then go back forward. Repeat that at the end. And there you have it. And that's all it takes to get your machine up and running and started sewing. Now, I would recommend at this point that you just take a scrap of fabric and kind of practice, run through all of the stitches if you want, just to get an idea of what they do beyond the straight stitch and the zigzag stitch, and get a feel for your machine before starting on a project. Thank you for watching, and I hope you'll join me next time for another handmade happening.